Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be talking about Google and it's being pushed to sell off Chrome and how that is just happening and all the things around that. Today we are on PC Gamer. Again, thank you to James Bentley for making this article. It'll be linked down in the description if you'd like to read along or just check it out for yourself. The title goes, Google being pushed to sell off Chrome is likely a good thing, but don't cheer on the decision just yet. The devil is in the details. And while this isn't technically video game stuff, there's a lot of things that run on Chrome or use the Chrome base, and it's just interesting to me about this because I haven't read fully the article, but I feel like it's because of probably monopoly things and stuff like that, or maybe I wouldn't surprise me if it's because of also Chrome being the default option for a lot of things that Google also owns. So we'll see how that goes. Just before we get into it, I'd just like to remind everyone, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers, and once we do, I'll be doing a Q&A video if you're interested. Thank you for subscribing. I may not have mentioned this yet. I'm pretty sure I mentioned it in one of my PC Gamer articles, but I have a law degree. Okay, that's cool. That has made me love the minutiae of the legal system, but also keenly aware of how complicated and drawn out it can all get. Oh yeah, I do not have a law degree, but I also know how complicated and drawn out it can get. I just don't obviously have the law degree understanding worth of it, but I do understand that it can get very complicated, very drawn out, and also very expensive because of that. In basically every country, through the United States enforcement of antitrust principles, as of late, is likely better for the consumer and broader market. The latest hearing isn't the end of the case. United States v. Google LLC 120 CV 03010 began proceedings in October 2020. Oh wow, this has been 4 years? Jeez, I don't remember hearing about this. And I was still I know I've been connected to the news more in the past basically year, but I was still relatively paying attention. So I'm surprised I haven't heard about this. It was decided in August of this year. This is a different case from the confusingly titled United States v. Google LLC 123 CV 00108. Wow, that is annoying. Okay. The very closely titled things, which started in 2023, and it has its closing arguments in November 2024. The latter case is specifically about Google's control and alleged monopoly over its advertising. Latter means later, right? Yes, it does. Alleged monopoly over its advertising. I mean, it definitely has a monopoly on advertising, whereas the former is about the search engine. Okay. Through deals with companies like Apple to be default search engines on the iPhone and Google's ownership of the popular mobile OS Android, Google has become the search engine giant it is today. That is true. Though I forgot that the search engine is default on iPhone. I thought Safari was on the Apple products. Interesting. I did not realize that. Oh no, sorry. I'm thinking of something else. Because you can use Safari with Google, right? Because that's what they're talking. Yeah, they're talking about the search engine Google, not the web browser. I'm sorry. I got confused there. There's a reason why it's popular joke to jokingly insult the 5 users of Bing, or how behind the market Microsoftedge is. Yeah, I mean, true. The browser is known as the app you use to get Chrome, then never touch it again. In fact, Windows periodically sends a reminder that you can just use Edge, and yet many don't. I write this typing on Google Docs through Google Chrome, so maybe I'm part of the problem. Fundamentally, most browsers aren't too dissimilar from each other, yet Chrome holds almost 70% of the market share. On a consistent basis, the lawsuit took aim at the browser, and after years of deliberation, the DOJ has proposed that Google be forced to sell Chrome alongside of other efforts to stop Google from further monopolizing the market. Okay. Judge Emmett Mata, who presides over the case, has ruled that Google acted illegally to develop and maintain its monopoly, as well as advertising that Google sell Chrome. The DOJ proposed it to be barred from re-entering agreements like those that made it the default web browser, whilst also recommending it share its data with rivals. Okay, interesting. I wonder, okay, I understand that Google does have a monopoly, and I'm not trying to argue that. But if Google sells Chrome, why shouldn't they be allowed to make deals about being the default web browser? Because then it won't matter because they aren't owned by Chrome, they aren't owned by Google, right? So then it's just Chrome having the marketplace instead of Google, technically, if they're two separate entities. Because I do feel like, having those types of deals isn't inherently a problem. I feel like having a default browser, the only problem is that if you can't change it, which I don't honestly I don't know, because I don't own an iPhone, so I don't know if you can change the search engine or default web browser with the iPhone. I actually don't know. It's also being recommended that Google either sell off Android or avoid making Google the default option on Android devices. The DOJ makes these recommendations to Judge Mehta, where Judge Mehta can meditate and come to an agreement. I don't know about, I mean, if you own Android, why, I feel like it's kind of weird that you can't make Google the default option. Like, I guess it's one of those things where it's a because the iPhone has default stuff as well, right? Like every phone has a default option. So I guess it's because Google is so big, so that matters more. I guess this is where we get into the details of the problem, right? Where you get into the finite details of what is a monopoly and how you kind of like circumvent that stuff, and if I'm just making excuses for Google to have more of a monopoly, because I also don't want Google to have a monopoly, but I also still want I guess it's not fair because they're already big. I don't know. It's an interesting situation. Very interesting. This all seems like great advice to stop a company that's acted in a way that the court deems to be monopolistic. Controlling such a huge part of the market not only discourages others from entering, but also can push those in the market out. Once a company has big enough control over a resource like all digital real estate Chrome has, it can essentially make its own rules. That is true. That is true. Chrome basically has no competition. Outside of court orders like this, there aren't all ways to hold huge corporation entities accountable when they are acting against its interests of the users. If Chrome, Edge, Opera, and more equally viable were equally viable choices, you could afford to swap from one to another if you don't like any decision made. That's true. Of course, selling Chrome won't shrink its user base overnight, though the other actions recommended by the DOJ would help that with that too. It's important to note that the legislation against Google is more than just a singular case. It's one of multiple antitrust suits levying against the company in the last few years. I mean, it's true. Google has done many strange and 100% monopolistic ways, and it's about time that something has happened, because they do kind of just dominate the internet, and you really can't do anything without being involved in Google, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. The problem is that they're so big that how do you become market competition for them? And the answer is right now you can't. So yeah, that's a problem. Published on November 21, just a single day after the DOJ proposed Google to sell Chrome, Kent Walker, the global affairs of the chief legal officers of Google and Applet, Google's parent company, took the Google blog to declare that this decision would hurt consumers. I doubt that. This piece makes the argument that the proposal would endanger the security of users by undermining the quality of services and disclosing Google's research to foreign and domestic companies. Google, you've sold everyone's data long ago. I don't believe that. I have zero confidence in that statement being true at all. They have 100% sold everyone's information already, and honestly, I don't believe them at all. To be fair, I'm very cynical when it comes to that. It also argued that Google's investment into AI would be chilled by this decision. I mean, I don't care about AI, honestly. Effectively awarding that Google's own advancement of AI would be held back as a result. I mean, the Google search AI is actually bad right now, and it honestly just like is a detriment to Google searches now, which is super stupid, because I can't believe I live in a world right now where Googling something is actually more difficult than it was 10 years ago, or even just like 5 years ago. When I Google something, I have to scroll down and pass the AI answer that is blatantly lying to me so I can actually go down to useful websites. It's super annoying. This blog also argues it would not only hurt casual consumers accessing the Google search engine, but it would hurt companies reliant on Google like Firefox. Finally, it argues this is a slippery slope and an overreach of the government on your online experience. None of these arguments on their face are necessarily wrong, but I'd argue they're lacking a little in nuance. Selling off such a huge entity could indeed leave customers open to bad practice, both technically and ethically, from the potential buyer. It is also true that Google research into the likes of Google Gemini would be less sense without owning the broader ecosystem. Also, with so many browsers being based on Chromium, Google's open source web browsing project, there's a chance for security and quality problems as a result. That's true, because Firefox and a ton of things are based on the Chromium stuff. However, that's also part of what the current process in the lawsuit is for. Judge Mehta had argued Google acted illegally, and Google does have a chance to appeal, which has been suggested it will do. If it fails to file as such, a further trial will be held in April next year to come up with the answer to remedy the alleged wrongdoing. Yeah, so this is still years away. In this case, Google's arguments will be heard and answers will be found. Many of the arguments brought forward by Google could be remedied through further litigation, and aren't themselves arguments against the suit. It's important to remember the DOJ's recommendation isn't law. It's merely a suggestion based on the facts of the case, and remedies can be found. That's true. There could be workarounds. Many workarounds can happen. Though we have many arguments and decisions, this case is anything but final, and it's hard to have a concrete and understanding until a later date. Though the breaking of the parts of Google seemed to have been unnecessary for some time, as argued by Judge Mata, the specifics of how it will happen will dictate how successful the potential selling would be. It is true, Google is a crazy big company, and it basically owns everything on the internet at this point, and it's just like, how do you fight that? I don't know how you fight that. But Google as a search engine is super useful. I mean, honestly, my biggest problem is that because they got so big, they did like all the AI stuff, and they can like Google can falter, and it doesn't matter because who is going to choose something different? So yeah. Chrome is a major part of much of how Google currently operates, and measures will need to be taken to not lose many fundamental parts of the internet seemingly overnight. A heavy-handed approach was needed for much of the court case to even bring this suit against Google, but a finer touch is needed for those specifics, though we won't understand how fine that is for some time. Yeah, I mean, the problem is you're also fighting Google, so everything is going to take time. Well, like this article said, another trial will be happening in April next year, so like it's still going to be an ongoing fight. I do feel like Google is too big, and they do have a monopoly over things, but I don't want Google to just like, disappear, because I think Google is extremely useful. I just feel like they have effectively killed the market, and they are the market, which is not how our world works currently. We want competition, we want fair markets, reasonably fair, I guess. There is obviously biases and advantages, but like there needs to be a competitive market so products can get better for the consumer. So I hope that this is what it eventually leads to. I feel like this is an okay step forward towards it. I'm still not entirely sure about the whole like you can't make deals making yourself the default option, because like what company wouldn't make themselves the default option? Like if you are Android and you had your own browser, why wouldn't you make yourself the default option? Like I feel like that one is a little weird to me, but it's also because Google owns all of these things. Like if they were separate companies, then it'd be different, I feel like, but because they're all the same company, it changes it, I feel like. But once again, we'll have to find out. This will be a very long process. So I'll be keeping an eye on this and keeping up to date on it. And I'll be posting videos anytime I see anything new. Thank you everyone for watching today's video. If you'd like to like the video, please comment down below what you guys think about the whole Google problem or solution, or it depends. Thank you. So please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. I'd really appreciate it if you do. If you'd like to follow me in other places, I have a Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, or Threads. If you'd like to check me out on any of those social media platforms. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.